Hello all. Today's session is about tools for sewing garments. Now we have discussed about how a fiber is made into a fabric. There is for example, if you're having cotton, you take the fiber, then you make it into yarns, then you make a fabric out of it by weaving techniques, and then from then, the last process is making a garment, right? So we need to make a garment which is a clothing for which is suitable for different purposes. So different types of garments are made. So what are the tools required for making these garments? So that is what we're going to discuss today. So the type of this equipments which are needed, they should be proper so that you have all the necessary items for that you can create a very good appearance of your clothes. So the type of tools are generally classified as six type of tools are there. There's first one is the measuring tools, drafting tool, marking tool, cutting tool, stitching tool, and pressing tool. So we'll be discussing about each of them in detail. The first one is measuring tool. Now we have discussed about making body measurements, right? Naturally, if you want to create a garment for yourself, the measurements should be perfect, then only you can have a perfect fitting garment. So measuring tools are needed for taking body measurements and transferring it into paper patterns. So in this method, a classic method of creating garment, first initially body measurements are taken, and then you prepare patterns or paper patterns which with the body measurements, and then you're going to transfer those measurements into your the fabric that you have bought, or which you are for use for making the garment. So first one, you have to make the measurements. Taking the measurements, you use measuring tape, meter scale, and ruler. So measuring tape is a very familiar thing that we have all seen, we are all familiar with. There is the usual fiberglass tape that you have seen all the time. So with this, you can take all types of measurements like your height, your width, etc. The only thing that you have to make sure that it is an accurate measurement, and also the tape should be held straight. Especially if you are making, if you are taking height and width, etc. So if it is the width or the horizontal the measurements that you're taking, it should be parallel to the floor. Okay, and if you are taking vertical, like for example height or height of your kurta, etc., the tape should be held straight. It should not have any bends or no slanting, etc. So it should be straight, and then there should not be any twists or turn on the wrinkles should not be there in the measuring tape. So that is what we have to make sure before we use a measuring tape. Now the next method, the next tool is measuring tools are meter scale, which is the 100 centimeter or meter scale is there, which is a accurate tool. You have to make sure that it is a accurate tool, because it should be for it can be used for taking measurements on the fabric, like how much of the fabric you need, like if you're making shirt or blouse or whatever you're making your kurta. So if it is 2 meters, then the measurement should be accurate. That is why you have to use a meter scale itself for the fabric measurements. Then for other measurements like small distances, there are different types of rulers that are there in your tailors or the fashion designers use different type for for the sleeve. For another, curved type of rulers are there, L-shaped rulers are there. So these are for the specific measurements, curved rulers, etc. So that the sleeves can be measured, the tucks, the hems, all those things have small rulers can be used for making marking the lines, etc. Now the next is, after you have taken the measurements, now after that what you have to do is make a pattern. Now these two, so you have to fix a pattern, right? So you have to draft a pattern. So patterns are usually made on brown paper. That is, all the measurements are taken, and you are keeping all the measurements on, and you're going to cut it on the paper first, and then you're going to transfer that into the fabric. So what are the different tools for drafting? So first of all, you need a table on which you lay your brown sheet, and then you have a you have your pen and paper, your pencils, etc., whatever you're going to use for drawing and drafting it. And then the pins are required, and a dress model can be taken for a drafting. So drafting tools, first is a table should be there, so that it is all the, it should be of a convenient height and size, so that you can draft and cut the fabric accordingly. So a brown sheet, just always good to draft paper pattern with the correct body measurements before actually cutting directly on the fabric. Before because if you cut the fabric, you cannot undo it, right? So initially you take all the measurements on a piece of brown sheet paper, you mark all of it, and then you cut the paper first, the brown sheet first, and then that pattern is then pinned over the fabric. Okay, you lay out your fabric, whatever material you have. Like if you have example, you have bought 2.5 meters of cloth, blue color, cotton material you have bought. So you're going to make a kurta out of it. So what you do is initially take your body measurements, draft a paper draft on it, that is paper pattern first. That is you lay out your brown sheet and then mark your measurements on as per your body measurements. You mark it, like you can see this in the picture over here. You make the measurements and then you give markings whatever is applicable, and then what you do is lay out, after you have done the paper pattern, you lay that pattern over the fabric. Okay, and then it is pinned, the pattern is pinned over the fabric and then stitched after cutting. So after that you will have to cut the fabric according to the pattern. Okay, so that is why a brown sheet is needed. Then in another very easy method is having a dress model. So in case you don't have a pattern, you don't need a pattern, the alternate method is, if you have a dress which is well fitted for you, which is something which a dress which you are very comfortable with, you can always do what you can just take the dress model, whatever model you have, and then you can lay it on the fabric and then cut accordingly to that size of that dress model. So it's very easy. So most of the time you see the tailors, they will ask for a dress model, like, do you have a dress that suits you well, can I get that dress? So you give it to them, so that's very easy for them to cut it according to that. Rather than taking body measurements and going all over the all the hassle of making a paper draft or pattern and then transferring it into the fabric, you can easily lay out your model dress and then cut according to the size of the model dress. So that is an alternative using the model dress. Now in the case of using a paper pattern, you need to have a lot of pins. Small bell pins can be made to fix the pattern onto the fabric, so that it is it does not have any when you're cutting it, it will not have any problem. So that is the measurements are completely accurate. And of course pin cushions are included here, because to stick on these pins, naturally you need some pin cushions, because you don't want the all the pins to spill over the floor or etc. So that is why you have pin cushions as a tool here in drafting. Now the next is marking. Now when you are drafting it and after you have drafted it, when you're laying your paper pattern onto your fabric, or you're having your dress model, you're laying the dress model onto your fabric, what you have to do is you need to mark it, right? You need to have a either you can use color pencils, marking chalk, or tracing wheel to mark it. So that is all the marking tools. That is you can use all those the tailors you have this tailors chalk is available in blue color or a pink color. You have seen it. So it depends on whatever color fabric you have. You need a contrasting color. So that is using these things you can mark it. So that's all. It's very simple. So you need to mark it, like you can draw it, whatever you use for drawing the the borders, etc., the lines, the cuts, pleats, etc. Those are called as marking tools. You can mark the measurements. So those are called marking tools. You have a tracing wheel here. This is called as a tracing wheel. Sometimes you can see these small marks like these. These are usually used by the designers or tailors. These, or sometimes even chalks are also used, but chalk is a little messy compared to the tracing wheel. Now the next is you cut the garment after you have marked, after you prepare the draft or the pattern, and then you mark it on the fabric, and next you have to cut the fabric. So you need different types of cutting tools. First is the scissors, then shears, different types of shears. That is normal shears or pinking shears, seam ripper, thread clipper, embroidery scissors. Now, what is the difference between a scissor and a shear? Now, this is the difference between scissor and a shear. A scissor is usually a small one having small handles, and this is the big one is called as a shear. Now, this is used for fabric cutting. So, usually scissors are used for small, you can use it for other purposes like small cuttings, but usually fabric or the cloth is actually cut by the shears. Okay, these are the shears. Okay, you can see it here. It'll be metal, it'll be really strong, it'll be very sharp also. Now, pinking shears is that shear which has a zigzag edge. You see here, when you cut the fabric with these pinking shears, it will give a zigzag appearance at the edge. Okay, sometimes you have seen certain, if you look inside out of your garments, you can see sometimes, the ends of your seam or the end of your fabric or whatever is outside will be like this, like it will have a zigzag appearance. This is because it is cut by a pinking shear. Okay, so this is a pinking shear and this is the normal shear and this is a scissor. The next one is seam ripper. See, this is actually a small, this is the seam ripper. This is actually to, cut the, what do you say, the end for removing stitches. For example, if your dress has become really tight, so you can use this one for removing the stitches. It's very easy compared to, pulling it out with your hand or a small needle. This is a seam ripper, so it is easier to lift the thread away from the fabric before, and it will ensure that the fabric is not cut. If, so for example, if you're using scissor or so anything, there is a chance that it will break the, it will also cut the fabric. So you need only to remove the, how do you say, the stitches. So that is what this is called as a seam ripper. Okay, next one is thread clipper. Now this is like when you have stitched the garment, there will be some loose threads that will be there at the ends. So these are for just for cutting those loose threads. So this is a thread clipper. The next one is embroidery scissors. Now these are these pointed small scissors, which is like 3 to 4 inches in length, and they have very pointed blades. This is for like making, cutting buttonholes, etc., and also used for, detailed works in embroidery. So that is what is an embroidery scissor. So these are the cutting tools. Now next we'll come to the stitching tools. Now this is like all those tools which are used for even hand sewing or machine sewing. So the most commonly used sewing tools are fabric. Of course, you need the cloth. Fabric is the cloth that you're having. The needles, thread, thimble, needle threader, bodkin, and loop turner. So let's see we are all familiar with fabric, needles, and thread. So thimble is what you use for, of course, your protect your hands. That is the thimble. That's nothing bigger than that. Just thimble is a protector for your hand so that it does not get it does not, you don't poke yourself with your needle or thread, needle or scissors, etc. So that is just a thimble. You use it, even you can also use it, you use the thimble even for cutting vegetables. So that is all. A finger protector, that is all. Then the other things like needle threader, this is the needle threader over here. You see, this is a material that is used for threading a needle. So it is helpful for threading a needle. So you can place the thread onto a hole over here in this, and then the needle can be passed through it. So it is easy to thread it. So usually we thread it with the normal, that is, you have to hold the needle very close to your eyes, and then you have to very carefully thread the needle. But then in this case, you have this needle threader here, helps you with that process. Okay, you don't need much time, you don't need to waste so much time and focus on the thread and the needle so much. That is why a needle threader can be used. The next one is a bodkin here. So bodkin is like a large blunt needle. So this blunt needle actually, if you want to pull elastic or any through the, for example, yeah, the best example I can give you is your salwar. If your pant has a, the thread, you're going to tie the thread. Your churi bottom pant or etc. has a thread that you need to tie. So what happens is, sometimes what happens is all those thread will just move inside, right? Sometimes when you are washing it, etc., it will go inside. So what will happen, this can be used to pull it out. So this is something that can be used to pull the cord or elastic, ribbon, etc. through the casting. So ribbons and anything which is going under the casting, or casting is that the folds of your clothes, like when you have your when you're wearing your pajama, or I mean your salwar kameez, the salwar, the pant, which will have this which will have a fold, and through the fold a ribbon or the thread will be there, right? So that cord will be there. So to pull it out, this can be used. That is called as a bodkin. Now the next one is loop turner. Now this is a something which has a it is a long metal rod with one small hook at the end. So this is actually for turning inside out. For example, some particular pieces of the cloths that you have used, for example your neckline, etc. Some items will be made, the small pipings, etc. can be created initially, and then you have to pull it inside out. So I have shown a picture or the video of how a loop turner can be used. You can see this here. So you first, initially there is a something which is made over here. See, this is it's already a stitched piece over here. Okay, this has been stitched. Now you're going to pull it inside out. So with the help of a loop turner. So this is a loop turner. Okay, so there are stitchings over here, something which is stitched. So you see, after this thing is taken in, the loop turner is put in, and then you see there it comes out a small hole, that loop is there, and then you're going to loop, you're going to take that inside through the loop, and then you're going to pull it out. See, and when you pull it out, it comes inside out. See, this it's a very interesting process. So you see there, you can make a very neat looking piece over here. See that? Yeah. So that is what is a loop turner used for. Okay. So pulling things out inside out so that it looks very neat. Now the next one is pressing tools. Now pressing is essential for neat sewing. That is just for enhancing the appearance, or like if you're ironing the garment, that's all. So for pressing or ironing, those tools which are required, like iron box, an ironing board, a press cloth, a sleeve board, and a seam roll. So let's see what is so we are all familiar with the iron box and the ironing board. That is iron box which we use every day to iron your clothes. The ironing board is the board on which you are ironing it, that's all. The press cloth, and the press cloth is also the cloth that is used to press it. Now the only thing which is there is two other terms. Is one is the sleeve board. For example, the for ironing a sleeve, there is the narrow areas. So you pull, you take the sleeve into it. You put the sleeve onto the sleeve board, and then you press it. That is for this is not used in our homes. Obviously, it is used in the industry. The for the fashion industry, etc., and also for clothing garment manufacturing areas, they use these sleeve boards, etc. Then the next is a sleeve seam roll. So seam roll is a cushion like thing used to press the long seams and small curved areas. So that is what is without having the imprint of the seam allowances. So that is what the seam area is pressed using this. Seam area is the ends. Okay, the end area is pressed using the seam roll, which is a small cushion. It is a narrow, long, very firm tubular cushion. So this is how seams are. The ends of the, it can be put placed on this, and it can be pressed. So what happens is, the seam allowance, that is like when you have a, when you are wearing a garment, you are like, when you give it for stitching, what happens is some garments will have seam allowance. Now, what is seam allowance? That is when you have become a little more, when you have gained weight or anything, you have some extra cloth that is there. That is, if you can just remove some stitches and you will have a little more bigger dress. So that is so some people, they will give a seam allowance. So for a good garment construction, you should give some amount of seam allowance. Then only your garment will your person, or whoever you are stitching it for, will be comfortable. Because sometimes what happens is we may gain weight, we may become fat at some certain places. So those areas can be you won't, even after you have gained weight, you can wear the same dress if you have enough seam allowance. So these seam will for the pressing of these seams, these seam rolls can be used without actually giving that imprint on the right side of the fabric. So seam allowances are actually inside the garment. Okay. So these are the different tools for normal tools for sewing the garments. Now we'll be discussing the most important equipment, that is the sewing machine. So this is a device when this is commercially available, for sewing the you're stitching your garment. That is the most important equipment here you have. So we have different types. There is the manual version and also the automatic version. So nowadays automatic versions are very common. You don't need a very lot of the wheel, and a lot of things are not required. You just plug into the electricity and it works automatically. So it can have a lot of different types of stitches also, compared to this the traditional or the manual version. So let's see the different the parts and the mechanism of the sewing machine. So the invention of sewing machine was the combined ideas and works of many inventors. So it was in 1790 that the first patent was given to Thomas Saint. Okay. So it was an Englishman, and another person, that is in 1832 there was a better version of it, that is Walter Hunt developed a machine in his shop in New York City. So he also incorporated new ideas. So initially there were different types of needles and locking stitch. So many or a lot of people contributed to this uh, you know the sewing machine. And in 1845 Elias Howe was also somebody who was given some contribution, that is by giving different types of needle and under thread shuttle. So that this machine could actually sew 250 stitches per minute. And at the last, so what we have seen, or what is the normal the traditional see we have the present day machine as we see it now, the foundations of that were actually done by Isaac Singer. So Singer is a very common name, or a very important name in the fashion industry, because you have seen the Singer machines, right? So he has produced a machine that had a straight needle and could sew continuously. Even now Singer machines are common in our country. So it was Isaac Singer. The Singer sewing machines are even common now also. Okay, so let's see the different parts of a machine. So here this is a machine by Singer. So in our country, we have a lot of machine like brands, the traditional brands like Usha, Singer, Merit, etc. are there. So all these people, they have the this old type of, or the manual machine which is there. There are different parts are there which we'll be discussing in detail, which you should know the parts and all the functions of it. So let's see what are the different parts of it. Okay. So the first one is the spool pin. Spool pin is where you place the thread. Over here, this is the spool pin over here. See, here is where, this is the place where there is a, a stick like thing just sticking out. So this is where you place the thread. Okay, so that is the spool pin. Then you have the thread guide. This is where all the thread here. So from here, the thread is going to this place over here. So this is the thread guide. You see here, from the spool pin, the thread will go all the way here, and then it will come here, and then it will wind over here, and then it will go to the needle. So this is the needle here. This is where the thread will be, it will be threaded onto the needle here. So that is the, then you have a tension disc. So it will wind over here, and these are two concave discs. So the tension disc is over here. This is the tension disc over here. That is the, after the thread passes through the thread guide over here, it will pass on to the thread guide. See here. Yeah, it will go to the thread guide over here, take up lever, and then it will pass on to the tension discs over here. Okay, what is the function of tension disc? It is like two concave discs are here. The thread will pass between these two discs over here. So the tension of the thread is adjusted using this over here. You can tighten it or loosen it so that you can adjust the tension of the threads. Now the next one is take up lever. Here this is the take up lever. So there is a small hole on which the thread should pass. So here also we can see here the thread. So from here, from the spool pin to the thread guide to the take up lever, and then to the tension discs, and then finally to the thread. So here this is the take up lever. So at the outside of the take up lever, what is there is a small hole through which the thread will pass. The lever, this is the thing that moves up and down. Okay, it will move down to loosen the top thread while the stitch is being formed, and then it will move up, pull the loop of the thread, and to complete the stitch. So this is the this moves up and down. So that is when the machine is working. The thread here from this the lever, it will move down to loosen the thread, and then it moves up again to pull the loop and will complete the stitch. The next one is the needle bar. The needle bar is where you pull the it is a steel rod which hold the needle. So that is the needle bar. Then this is the bobbin case which keeps the under thread. Okay. So this moves in position to catch the top thread and form a stitch. So initially there is the top thread will come from the needle, and the bottom thread will come from the bobbin case. Okay, so that is this is the bobbin case or the bobbin chamber. Now the next one is presser foot. Now this is where you keep the this is the presser foot which holds the cloth firmly, and then this is where this when you're keeping the stitches, this presser foot will hold the fabric. The next is presser foot lifter. This is just to you have, when you are completed the stitching, you lift it, and then the presser foot will be loose. That is it moves up, and you can take your garment or take your cloth, and then again when it is pulled down, it will be very firmly placed. That is, the presser foot will be tight. It will be tight onto the fabric. Now the next one is stitch regulator. Now stitch regulator is something that regulates the length of the stitches. So you can see here, this is the stitch regulator over here. Yeah. So you can see when you the length of the stitches can be like, if some stitches may be really small, they're like very small stitches, or maybe can be wide stitches. So this can be regulated using the stitch regulator. That is what is stitch regulator. And then one is the flywheel, the bobbin winder. Yeah, bobbin, this is the bobbin winder. Now in order to this is the bobbin case we said. So this is about the under thread. Now this we have to this bobbin should be wound with the thread, right? So that is that is actually wound by the bobbin winder. You place the bobbin over here, and then you place the thread also, and then it this rotates, and the bobbin will be wound. So that is where you get the thread on the underside, or the bobbin case will be filled with the thread, or it will be wound to the thread using this bobbin winder over here. So this is what facilitates the winding of thread on the bobbin. Then is the flywheel. That is when it is revolved. You have seen it is very common sight. So when you revolve this, the machine starts to work. So this is the flywheel, or the balancing wheel, it is said sometimes. Next one is face plate. This is the cover. This is the main cover of the this is the outside cover of the stitching machine. Now the next one is the pedal, which you are all familiar with. That is the downside. That is, you press the foot with the pedal, and then you press the pedal, and the machine starts working. That is the manual machines, which are not connected to the electricity. That the machine works when you press the pedal. Now the next one is a belt. That is also, it is a common thing that you see. This is there is a flywheel, and the pedal is connected via the belt. Okay, that is when you move the balance wheel or the flywheel, that is when you it should move, and this and the pedal should work in unison, then only the machine will work. So this is the belt. So that is all about the different parts of the machine. Now let's see about how do you take care of the machine. Now you need to regularly clean it, oil it, and care the machine so that it can be used for a long period of time. So oiling or lubricating the machine is very important, because all these parts are metallic in nature, so it can be very greasy, or it can be very stiff if you don't oil it frequently. That is, at least once a week you should be oiling it, because you can remove the different parts of it, and inside also you need to oil, because as all of as machinery is concerned, all these parts needs to be greased, then only, otherwise it will be very stiff. So you can use the application, I mean the instructions manual for location of parts that need application of oil. So that is the most important part of the cleaning. Now let's discuss about the different problems that can happen. The why are we studying this? Because in a number of questions, sometimes in the net exam also, sometimes it can you can be asked the question, that is the in your stitching machine, tangles, threads are being tangled at the beginning. What could be the possible reason? Okay, so this is a very common sight if at all you have done your practicals in your textiles, or those of you have actually had experience with working with this sewing machine. This is a very very common experience. That is, initially when you're doing this, because I have, when I was doing my practicals also, and I also use a stitching machine. So when you do this, this is a very common thing, that when you're under experience, what happens is all these threads will tangle at the beginning. So initially when you do the threading, and after you have placed the bobbin, etc., this happens. It's very common. So what are the possible reason? First one is the bobbin is too full. So the bobbin should not actually be wound to the full capacity. It should be in a moderate manner only, otherwise this can happen. The bobbin is set in the wrong direction. That is also another problem. The under thread is not drawn up. So the that is the over here, this is where the bobbin will be. Okay, so the bobbin should be from the bobbin, the thread is drawn up to the the plate over, I mean to the needle bar over here, so that the stitch is formed. So sometimes what happens is the under thread is not drawn up, and sometimes both the threads not pulled back under the presser foot. So these should be the tension should be the same. It should be pulled back also under the presser foot over here. That is, over here in the machine, the both the threads should be pulled back over here, then only a good stitch is formed. And then another problem is the machine is not properly oiled and cleaned, then also this problem can occur. Now the next one is skipped stitches. This is also very common. See, you see here the stitches are all okay, and then some places the stitches are skipped. So this is also a reason. So what are the possible reason for this? First one is the needle might be bent. The needle might be set on the wrong side. That is a the groove should turn to the wrong side. That is another problem. That is the long groove means the it should be accordingly to the needle should be placed on the needle bar in a particular possible in the right manner, in the perpendicular manner, then only it will create good stitches. The needle can be low or high in the needle bar. It should be at the correct height also. And sometimes what happens is the needle is too small, the needle is threaded from the wrong side, or maybe an excess oil can also be a problem. The next one is upper thread breaking. So this is a very common thing that I have experienced while I was stitching this dress. That is, after a small, after a few stitches, the first or the upper thread breaks. So this is possibly due to poor thread. Now, those threads, like we are using after a long time, like these threads are very old. So what happens is the thread quality decreases. So that is why poor thread can be a reason for upper thread breaking. So here in this picture, you can see these are the bobbins over here. Okay. So this is for the lower threads. Now the machine is incorrectly threaded. The needle is set on the wrong side. So this is the needle bar over here. It should be set like it is in a perpendicular manner. It should be, set in the correct, in this, it should be straight. That needle is too fine for the thread. Sometimes the needle material is not so good. Needle is threaded from the wrong side, so it should be threaded from this side. Okay, over here. Now sometimes if it is in the opposite direction, again there will be a problem. The upper tension is too tight. There is we have discussed about the tension discs, right? Now you when it is the tension is too tight, or you have to loosen the tension disc a bit, then only you can the upper thread might be okay. Then sharp edges on the needle plate, etc. Then thread take up spring is broken. So there is a thread take up spring. So there also the spring can be broken. So such things are should be taken care of. Now the next is needle breaking. So this is a very common problem. That is a needle breaks when you are stitching it. So it could be due to the needle is not sharp, like you have a strong cloth, and that time the needle can break. Then incorrect size of the needle for thread and fabric. So certain times, like for wearing, like for stitching jeans, etc., you need a bigger needle compared to the normal needles can't be used. Such things. Then pulling of material while stitching. Yeah, sometimes what happens is you pull the material, that the tension is too high on the fabric, so that time also the needle can break. Then the presser foot is incorrectly set. Then you have, for example, you are crossing a very thick seam. That is when there are many multiple clothes are attached together, like your armhole or any place where a lot of seams are there, that is the ends are there, and in the small the needle is not very strong, so that time also the needle can break. So such are the problems with needle breaking. Then fabric puckering. So this is called as fabric puckering. So this might be very commonly seen. See, this is the the fabric is becoming very the tension is very high. It gets a puckered appearance. So it is common in usually for polyester, satin materials, etc. So you have seen in different satin materials and all, this puckered appearance can be seen. So what happened? What is the possible reason? One or both the tension is too tight. That is maybe the upper thread and the lower the tension may be high. The stitch may be too long. So sometimes you can adjust the stitches, right? So the stitches may be too long, the needle may be blunt. So these are the different possible reasons for puckering of the garment. And staggered stitches is when the stitches are in a not in a haphazard manner, that is not straight. So that is called as staggered stitches. So there what happens is there is too little pressure on the presser foot. So it should, the stitches should be, I mean the presser foot should be correctly placed on the fabric. And sometimes what happens is when the pressure is not so good, there is a possibility of staggered stitches. Then the take up spring is weak, broken, or missing. So take up spring is here over the place where the thread is moving. So there also there is a spring. The spring action is weak. Then also staggered stitches can be a result. Then uneven stitch length. If some places the stitch length is high, then small stitches, then big stitches, like that, then that is also that could also be due to incorrect presser foot pressure. And the feed dog is dirty. Feed dog is where you place the fabric, right? So that is very dirty. Then also this uneven stitch length can be problem. Then the next one is material is not feeding correctly. So here the stitch regulator is close to zero. That is, stitch regulator is very small. When it is then also what happens is the stitches won't come correctly. So there is dirt under the needle plate. So there also the material will not get there won't be stitches coming. Then incorrect presser foot pressure, bent presser foot. So when the presser foot is bent, also what happens is the stitches won't come. That is, the machine materials don't feed properly. That is the machine does not get stitched. Now sometimes what happens is the machine will run heavily. That is it gets very stiff. That is not moving smoothly. if it is very smooth, if it is very heavily means it's not smooth, it's very rough, or you have to apply lot of pressure. The most common reason is lack of oil. Then there is a sometimes there is thread wound around the wheel, so there are might be loose threads might be there, which can be get stuck on the wheel. Then the belt might be too tight. The bobbin winder is pressed down, or that there is thread jammed in the shuttle race, or there is gummed oil or dirt on the bearings. So all these things can lead to very what do you say, a heavy running machine. So that is, it becomes very hard to run the machine. So these are the different problems and rectification of sewing machines. Now let's discuss about the different types of sewing machine other than the normal machine. That is, normal machines are made for completely for stitching purposes. That is for normal stitches. Okay. Now other machines are available. That, like earlier days, there were different types of machines for different purposes. But now, like with modern technology and all this, like Jano, Musha, and all has come up with machines which all of them can be done with a single machine. Okay. But earlier, what happens is for locking, for interlocking, there is a special machine. Over edging, there is another machine, etc. So earlier, those are the different types of, the settings are different. So now what happens is in the automatic machines, you can just, change the settings, just like you change your, channels on your TV, you can change the settings on your machine, automatic machines, and you can have different types of stitches. But here, in the earlier times, the setup was different. So naturally, you needed different machines for different things. First one is a lock stitch machine. So this is for the, locking together of this, for, this is the for interlocking over here. That is called as a lock stitch machine. For example, if you have your dupattas and all, you might give it for over locking, right? So this machine can be used. So then over edging machine is like you can cut an edge, cut the edge and sew it. So this is also another type of interlocking machine also. So this is here the type of stitches are different compared to this. So here there are two types of threads coming in. Here also there is a the seam is cut and then it is sewn. The next one is buttonholer machine, that is for making buttonholes. Then button attachment machine, that is for attaching buttons. So there are these things now. Nowadays, all these functions are there in a single machine itself. But earlier, they used to have a different machines for different purposes. So one is for making buttonholes. So you can create buttonholes with this machine, and then you can attach buttons using another button attachment machine. The next one is embroidery. Of course, now embroidery, all those, you can just type in your pattern onto your, the computer kind. There is a, computerized machines are there. You just feed the pattern or feed the thread. All the different types of threads are put into the machine, and then you get beautiful patterns on your fabric with the help of these embroidery machines. Then double needle machines. The double needle machines is, instead of a single stitch, here you see, just like in the picture, you can see there are two needles are there. So naturally, two stitches will be made. So this is good for, like leather, very hard materials and all. You need a double, denims, jeans, etc. You need these machines because you need double stitches. So double needle machines is for, very thick, for making thicker garments or many different purpose, like, leather bags, etc. Bags and all needs these type of machines. The next one is bar tacking machines. So bar tacking is for, the stitches, for, hiding tears, etc. If there is any tear, etc., this bar tacking machines will, hide the tears, or stitches will be made to remove the, the tears, etc. The torn clothes can be repaired using a bar tacking machine here. Now the next one is quilting machine. Quilt is like, you have seen these quilts like mattresses, etc. For those of things, quilting machines can be used for making mattresses, etc. So these type of stitches can be made using a quilting machine. So these are the different types of tools and equipments required for the sewing purposes, stitching. So we have discussed about the initial, that is measuring tools, drafting tools, pressing, all those, stitching, drafting, marking, etc. there. And then we have discussed about the stitching machine or the sewing machine and the different parts of the machine. Hope it is clear to you all.